This segment of Taking Stock, The Analyst, is brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart, and Profit Jumpstarter. Disclaimer: this is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Welcome back, guys. Before we join the analyst, let me take a couple more questions because the chat is on fire tonight. Nana Sen said, I'm seriously thinking of buying one of those homes for my farm. And then Richie did the research. They challenged him to do it. And he says to build something of comparable size, it will cost you about $12.8 to $13 million. Which size though, Richie? That's for the small one? Which size would that be for? Give me some more research, because the container homes come in different sizes. They start at less than $3 million. They go up to about $12 million. So to build something of comparable size, for which one? Which one would cost you about $13 million? Let me know. All right, before we end the show, I'm going to come back to Richie. Hopefully he has the answer. But in the meantime, let me introduce our analyst panel for this evening. And it's just one person. So the panel is me and you, Clive. I'm joined by equity trader at JMMB, Clive Charlton. Welcome back, Clive. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me again. Let me see if you're better off with this. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes. Yeah, welcome. And thank you for having me again. Always a pleasure.
What were you saying? Let me see if you're better off with what?
No, I just plugged in the earphone. So
the
I'm wondering if you can hear me better.
Cool. All right, so tonight you want to talk about changes in the digital payment space and the potential implications. So you guys would have noticed that there is an increased thrust towards digital payments, and you have traditional players in the banking industry also signaling interest in this space. What can you tell us about what's going on right now? Because every time I do a video about cashless, people come for me and then vex. So what's happening with digital payments?
Yes. Well, I think first and foremost, I think it's a natural evolution of technology. We have more efficient machines. We have cars that can perhaps self-drive one day. It's just natural that a system that relies heavily on a process, also digitize itself. And several developments have taken place. The natural progression of technology is one thing, but in the new space of international conflict, if you can call it that, there are some countries that have used digital currencies to bypass the use. For example, the U.S. currency. The U.S. that is managed. It is in terms of its monetary policy by the United States, and we're aware of some countries that have used digital currencies to bypass the U.S. payment system in the U.S. currency, right, hoping to avoid some sanctions implemented by the U.S. government. So, also in Jamaica. Part of the whole digital transformation is also the issue of central bank digital currencies. We know in several third world economies, largely in very rural areas, it is found that persons are easier. They don't have access to banks. Persons are unbanked. Don't have access to machines. And we just recently some developments in Jamaica also. So you may see more persons moving to this digital transformation and more institutions adopting this digital transformation. Right? And it is a very broad area also. It is not just financial products that can generate revenue, but for example, BOJ, the CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, the name of ours is JAMDEX. That really is to facilitate a new way of carrying currencies, of moving money, of people doing transactions. It is the same currency, the Jamaican currency, but it is in a digital form. Okay, so that is one aspect of the whole digitalization. And I think it's just part of the natural evolution of advancement in technology that is impacting every aspect of life, from the type of clothes we wear to the, as a matter of fact, even in sports, the material used on clothes and bikes, every sport makes it go faster, efficiencies of business. So the financial sector is a productive company, a real productive company might buy a machine that is more efficient, can put out X output per period of time or per unit of cost. Banks are doing the same thing also, financial institutions in general.
But why do you think Jamaicans are so resistant to any form of digital payments? Because every time I put out a video on this topic, Clive, and I'm cool with it, I'm a proponent and advocate for digital, payments. But every time I put out something on it, the backlash, the negative comments, people feel like it's a whole conspiracy to get you to give the government your information. Do you think this will ever really take off in Jamaica?
It will, and I think it must. It will. It will. Interestingly, with the pandemic, the social media, the how it's so pervasive that everyone now has access to spread their ideas and their thoughts that really sometimes are just theirs, and they find out that they can find an audience in the far reach of the globe that previously they didn't have access to. And I think every little J and every Jack who has sense or no sense can now speak and spread fear among people. But let's not discount the concerns people have. It is born out of distrust sometimes, Do we trust our government? Do we trust our leaders of government? That's the important thing. Is business and the workers moving in one stead, to build an economy, So are banks finding a new way to charge fees for every action, Are they giving you options to decide whether you want to be charged or not? So I think these are some questions. For persons who evade tax or who want to pay less tax, they might think that this is another way to track them, to track their expenditure. You see? So you can buy a car with cash, have it there, enjoy it. The government don't know that you're earning this income, but they can now track you electronically. So I think these are the distrust that has developed in the minds of people. And if it is properly explained, and we develop the trust factor in terms of the actual technology being used and perhaps the information that is gleaned from this technology. If it is properly stored in a safe manner, I think people will become more comfortable with it. But sooner or later, we'll find out that even the individual benefits significantly from the new digital movement towards this new system and process. But I think, distrust, I think, and if we can kind of work on that part, we will have a more acceptable populace.
So right as I was saying, people don't trust the government, and here we go, Orville saying this digital currency is to control people. Troyan saying definitely don't trust the government, much less the banks. But Philip is agreeing with you. He says 100% agree, Clive. It will come. You said it must come. Why must it come? Why is it so important for us to move in this direction?
Okay. Usually things happen over time and things grow. Let's look at the development in just recently in Jamaica, where the criminal network are targeting these money trucks. What will they do next? They'll probably just start standing out at an ABM. Just wait. We saw that hoax, that social media hoax that was being run by a few guys, where they're approaching people, which was just cruel, approaching people. Oh, it was a joke. You saw it? I'm not sure if you saw it on the news.
No, which hoax is that? What was that?
Some guys approach persons coming out of the machine as if they were going to rob them, literally telling them, and they're filming it and post it on social media, literally telling them, it was on TV, to go into your bag, give me your money. And these people are terrified, it's shaking, crying. And then they tell them it's just a joke. But things like that will push. I'm sure those persons. A
robbery prank? That is crazy.
Yes, in Jamaica here.
Oh my God.
And apparently it was so popular. It was on news. It made the media, and it was being recorded. And the police got involved. And the guys I'm not sure if they were arrested and charged, but they were certainly brought in because they were there on screen, being shown all over social media. And they thought it was okay. Visitors came to the island, Jamaican visiting family, and that particular one was filmed. I'm not sure if she brought it to the public attention, but that particular one was filmed. And you can see how traumatized the lady was, being quote unquote robbed by these guys, digging into her handbag, right? But things like that though, right? So that is one reason, at least on our local domestic side, might move people to want to, do things digitally. Let's look on the government side now. CBDC, we're reaching a more remote populace that doesn't have access to physical banks Two, banks are getting more efficient in their operations. Rather than have huge banking halls with all the associated cost, material, land, building, light, water, AC, chairs, everything that goes with it, pens and paper. They are now cutting that down and having more digitalized centers manned by fewer people, and they have your machine that has all the information. They're not writing down anything, and that. So banks are all cutting back. If banks are cutting back, other areas would have to move alongside that, draw towards efficiency. We talk about the safety concerns. We talk about the government wanting to bank. And we saw during COVID, where it was necessary, that there were so many unbanked persons, they could not get the benefit that the government was giving them. Also during COVID, you don't want to go into a banking hall. You can order food from home electronically. It is delivered to you. So all these things are development from other things, other catastrophic, other diseases. Sorry, not disease, but other, perils, global in this case. So it's a natural thing that will occur as there are changes in other aspects of life. So we talk about the health part. We talk about the government trying to reach the unbanked. We talk about business entities trying to cut costs in hard physical infrastructure. But look at what are some other costs. Currencies. It costs to make currencies. The Jamaican currency is made abroad. There's technology involved in trying to make it less counterfeitable. There's a cost to that. Each time you're going to introduce a new denomination, there's a cost to that. The cost of transportation of money. For example, I can tell you when you go to sell or buy cash, let's say to sell cash to NCB, JMMB, any other physical institution, you get less for your cash than you do for a check. Why? Because that cash, especially a foreign currency cash, is not a Jamaican currency. It must be transported back to its domicile country. This is where correspondent banks come into. That is correspondent banks, meaning banks in the US that handles business in their currency with our local counterpart. You see, so this is why you get less for cash. Even though you might say, "What I'm giving them cash?" Yeah, they have to certify that cash. They have to count that cash. They have to stack and process that cash. They have to transport it back overseas. Okay, so there's a cost to it that is eliminated somewhat. Right? The cost of producing paper money. Yes, the cost of producing.
I didn't know that part.
Yes, really interesting, right? And of course, the cost of producing paper money. That money is produced in another country. So those are some of the issues. And of course, we spoke about in terms of international politics. When the US can put restrictions on various economies in the use of their currency. We talk about Jamaica and the issue of drugs and what you call criminal money. Remember they put some threat, for want of a better word, on our local banks, the correspondence banks, in terms of and when they had this drawdown on remittance and cambios and all these things, who exchange money, because that was a means of exchanging criminal currency. So these are things again, and that's a regulatory issue that is forcing us to digitize. So there are many, many reasons outside. We talk about the health pandemic. We talk about the international political situations. We talk about the cost efficiency, businesses getting more efficient in their systems and processes. We talk about
security,
regulatory, talk about security. So these things are naturally pushing us towards digitization, right? Of course, technology, we must produce our own local. I think we have a good fair number of them. I mean, we have a lot of young people now who are skilled in this technology. That is good for us. Where do we store this information? I've done a little bit of reading where quite a few countries, China, India, several other countries are now telling Amazon, Facebook, that they want the information on their people and their country domiciled and stored on servers in their country, or in some country that they consider safer or neutral or something. Even the big US, they fear the US and what the US. So the US is talking about China and TikTok and information that the Chinese government can glean from them. Other countries are also concerned about Facebook. We talk about the use of technology. So those are the security features that our government will have to work alongside business enterprises to ensure that there's security in this new system. But we're moving towards that. It's just a natural progression of humanity. All
right, so I have a few comments here online. about this whole thing. So Christopher says, I think once the Data Protection Act is up and running and properly regulated, then there will be more confidence in the digital currency. So that's a good point. Philip says, when moving money is seen as clearly cheaper, then winning, for me, is the security. I mean, these whole beryllium robberies are a big proof of that. Sean says the banks are pushing efficiency but not security. Even the Visa card tap payment is scary. How do you respond to that one, Clive?
You know, everything that is developed, there's a counterpart to it. There's someone on the other side of the fence, you know, in terms of integrity, that is developing, you know, some tool to, you know, to work the system, right? And what I find interesting too, in the card readers, what I find with the US economy, which seem to be very, very built on profiteering and making money, you think that a card reader, where do these people get card readers? Somebody designs it and sells it, knowing fully well that this is probably using some criminal action. I mean, we have our on our motor car, the police, you know, in order to track speed, to reduce, you know, for public safety reason, and protection of public property and people's life. The radar reader, someone builds and sells radar detection system that you can put in a car. So that again goes against the trend of public order and public safety. So there's someone out there, including institutions, well-regulated, structured, legal business enterprises, especially in the Western countries, that know that they will build these devices, build these systems that they know is to be used for other means. You see? So that is the nature of it. And we just have to work the system around it to see how best we can mitigate these negative consequences. Yeah. And that is the development of a new industry in the whole IT infrastructure also.
Speaking of the IT infrastructure, Lamtree has a comment. Yet when you go see place to, okay, you're all mixed up here. The card machine is always down.
Yes.
Is the essence of the comment.
Yes.
Yet when you go there, the card machine always down.
Down. Yes. Well, you know, that happens. As it is now, I don't see the elimination of cash within the next, let me reasonably say 5, 10, 15 years. I don't see a complete elimination of cash. And I believe that as much as we see technology here, and we're near to our first world country, US, and we trade heavily with them, and our whole taste, our, you know, how we think, how we reason, what we desire mirrors almost what is in the US. So we are fairly advanced. We have access to technology. We see technology. You know, we buy technology easily, and we have ways and means of buying it. But there are some jurisdiction far away, far removed, that is just not ready, not prepared, don't have the infrastructure, and really the people are not, their senses are not really moving in that direction of digitization. They will continue to use cash, right? So I don't see a massive move. We just have to balance it for the time being. We may have to have machines that are closer to home. I'm not sure if it makes much of a difference now, but the banks can now put machines nearer to police stations.
You mean the ATMs? When you say machines, I mean
ATMs, yeah, right. I think that's a matter of security, and we really just have to find new ways and means of guaranteeing the safety of not just people, individuals, but also people's investments, you know?
I think there's going to have to be major incentives to get people to overcome the trust issue and actually try it out and use it.
Yes.
The businesses, the vendors, they're all going to have to offer incentives for you to use digital payments, since, you know, that trust issue is a big hurdle to overcome. Philip says, read on the evolution of digital money in Ghana. From 2009, and start pushing it. There are now more cashless accounts than there are people.
Yes.
That's like when in Jamaica, most people had 2 phones, you know, and there are more phones than people in Jamaica. That's what happens in Ghana with digital currency. And I did a video on this, either this week or last week, about, you know, digital payments in Kenya, in Ghana, in many African countries, where this is like really advanced, and the vast majority of their economy is run via digital payments and all the benefits that comes with.
And that came out of a need. Again, most of the people are unbanked, you see. But what it shows, just like Jamaica, I mean, in the 1960s, 70s, we had one of the best housing solution systems in the world, right? Jamaica would send delegation all across the world to help them with their housing. Third world countries develop ideas, develop systems and tools to move ahead. And they're way ahead of first world countries in many times. But what is interesting about technology, I have seen documentaries from in the latter part of the 1990s, early 2000s, where in Japan, they were using their phones to go onto the train, to buy things in retail outlets, to view their children at the daycare center, daycare wherever, to view and watch their children. So these people are doing a whole lot with this digital technology long before the US. We are now awoken to Apple, as if Apple is the great thing. Apple is not the great thing, but I say we are closer and nearer to them. We have their cable channels, we believe, that. But look at Africa. They have been leading this digital currency thing for like the last 10 years or so, way ahead of the rest of the world. Yeah? We know the Eastern Caribbean also. I think St. Lucia, maybe the OECS, several countries in the OE Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, they have a common currency, right? And a common monetary system. They have introduced CBDC also, right? So quite a few sections of the world are way advanced. I mean, not in its totality, but in some aspect. I know that in Kenya, in Ghana, and I think Nigeria and several other African countries, the little monochrome phones, people are using that to do transactions like many years ago.
From around 2008. And I remember Jamaica started trying to implement this, and they just kind of, the people who started it, the banks mainly, didn't really put much resources into it, and they just let it die. And now these countries have come and they've just, are using it to really boost their economy. But we're going to have to leave it there, Clive. Thank you so much for joining us and having this enlightening conversation about digital payments and where we are moving as a country, and where you said we have to move. As much as people might not like it, this is where the world is heading. We'll take a quick break and come back with comments. There are a lot of comments in the chat tonight, and I will give you a sneak peek at our membership money mission membership community, which I'm inviting you to join. Be right back.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analyst, was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart, and Profit Jumpstarter.